I grew up in Lake City, Florida. My biological mom kind of had a one-night stand with my biological dad, and I was conceived. I think my mom was just really young, and she wanted to live life, and I don't think she was ready for kids. So I grew up in just a lot of neglect. DCF removed me from the home when I was 2 for abandonment, and my biological dad at that time gave his rights away as well. I was put in my sister's dad's home, and it started off as verbal abuse, and then it began to become physical abuse, and then later on I would realize that I was sexually abused as well. So abuse from all forms, which would just range from, yelling, from being locked in my bedroom and not being able to come out, him putting his hands on me, anything that you can think of, I probably experienced. I even have this memory of eating at the dinner table once, and I didn't like the macaroni and cheese, and I ended up throwing it up and then being forced to eat it. I think from childhood I've had a feeling of rejection, like no one wanted me. Just honestly, I think I often felt that I would be better off dead. And there was a lot of fear, and a lot of that fear also came from is that my sister's dad liked to watch scary movies, and so part of what he would do is he'd make us watch the scary movies with him. So from paranormal activity to all that you can think, which was just, it brought a lot of fear. And to me, I had a lot of fear growing up, sleeping at night, just paranoia of something, I think I knew that the demonic existed without knowing much about God, just because what I experienced with the fear as a child. I think probably at that time I didn't really know that it was abuse. To me, it was my normal. That was normal to me. It wasn't until I got older that I started to actually feel the effects of the trauma. When I was 15, I was in 8th grade. I had already accepted Christ in my life at this point. And after accepting Christ in my life, kind of the abuse just got worse at home. I know it was the Spirit of God in me and the enemy working really hard in my home. And so I was just so overwhelmed, and just truly feeling like no one cared. And the lie that I had believed all my life, but started to become more prevalent, was that everyone would be better off without me. And so we had this huge bottle of aspirin, and I ended up trying to commit suicide, trying to overdose on aspirin. And I didn't overdose, but I was in the ICU for days, and then I was Baker acted. I had asked to go to church one Sunday morning, and he wouldn't let me, so I ended up leaving anyway and going to church. And he had called me while I was at church and was just threatening me over the phone, and which this kind of led to my stepdad coming into my room, threatening to attack me if I didn't give him my phone. This happened 3 or 4 times, and on the 3rd or 4th time he came into my room and he punched the wall above my head. He flipped some items in my room over, flipped the bed I was on over, and started to put his weight on top of the bed and started to crush me. And finally he got off of me, and he said, if I come back and you don't give me your phone, it's not going to be good. And so as soon as he left the room, I ran out the door, and he came running after me, and he got on top of me onto the ground, and I'm crawling and doing everything that I can to get out of his grip. And we fight for this for a while, and then finally he's on top of me, and he puts his hands on my throat, and he says to me, this is what you want. You want me to kill you. You want me to go to jail. And in that moment, I had my eyes closed, and I'm like, Lord, this is it. This is the end. He's going to kill me. I'm going to meet you today. And I know this was only the Lord. He takes his hands off my throat, and he gets up off of me. And so I get up and I run down the road to this liquor store, and I call the police, and that was how I got out of the home. So after DCF removed me out of the home, I lived with 3 or 4 foster homes, and I just remember the first home that I lived in. I was so thankful because I was like, Lord, I have always wanted this. I always wanted a family, and I finally received it. And then getting moved to the next home and then feeling like when God says that he puts the lonely in families, like, how could that be true when he had put me in something and then I was taken out of it? And so I had a lot of anger towards the Lord, but then it just confirmed the belief that no one wanted me, or no one, like everyone would be better if I was dead. Like, no one cared. It just confirmed this belief that, no one cared about me. And so I moved over and over and over again, and then finally I ended up with a family who stayed with me until I came to PBA. I was introduced by someone I dearly love, who was like a mom to me at PBA, to Bow Down. And there were certain things that I wanted in a church, and on my first day at Bow Down, they covered all of it. So I just knew right away. I stopped looking for churches. I knew Bow Down was the church for me. And Colleen was the first person I got connected with. And of course, she's like, we got coffee. And then I went to JH. And then she ended up mentioning 516 to me. And so I ended up praying about doing 516, and the Lord made it clear to me. I knew I was doing 516 before leadership did. I had been feeling like this lack of community, lack of family, but coming to Bow Down, they truly came around me and loved me as if I was their own. And I think about the scripture that says to take in the orphan. Bow Down really replicated that for me. Going into 516, I knew I was broken, and I think the trauma just caught up with me at this point because I was in a safe environment. It's like the Lord was like, okay, we're ready to work through this. We're ready to process this. And I had started inner healing before I'd even started 516. When I was coming into 516, I said to the Lord, I'm like, Lord, if 516 doesn't heal me, I don't know what can. And I truly believed that. To me, 516 was my last option. One day I went to the Bow Down office, and I was in Katie's office, and I just said, Katie, I don't want to live today. And Katie was like, have you ever renounced hopelessness and death off of your life? And I'm like, I don't think I have. So I renounced both of those things. And she asked me, is there anything else you need to ask for forgiveness for? And I admitted to her I had looked up how many pills I would need to take to kill myself that previous day. And she's like, okay, I want you to renounce control. And when she'd asked me to renounce control, I started to feel this unsettled feeling in my body. And Katie's like, Brandie, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, I feel unsettled. And she's like, you're shaking. And she's like, I want you to renounce control. And as I go to renounce control, the words are not coming out of my mouth. It feels as if something's choking me. Like something has my throat and I can't get the words out of my mouth. And I'm like, I renounce. And finally I was able to I renounce control. But with Katie's discernment, she was able to discern there was something more going on. So she grabbed Cheryl. They pulled me into the inner healing room. And through a lot of prayer, I start to feel this something start to rise out of me. And a few seconds later, I know I'm on the floor. I'm screaming, animal-like noises are coming out of my body, and I don't remember much from it, but it almost feels like I was an outsider watching what was happening, and I realized, I had experienced a manifestation, and I'm like, how can that happen? I'm a Christian, I love the Lord, and I couldn't even celebrate that the Lord was delivering to me because fear was tormenting me, and because I experienced the enemy so strongly, I actually started to believe that the enemy was stronger than the Lord, and I think that's what the enemy wanted me to believe. And I remember going home that day after this encounter and just being tormented with fear, I couldn't sleep by myself that night, and I couldn't sleep at all because I just kept seeing this image of this black shadow just coming after me. And I truly believe the enemy wanted to take my life. But it was so cool because the fear, it didn't draw me away from the Lord. It drew me closer to the Lord because I knew that the Lord was the only one who can send the fear running and bring peace to my soul. And so I sought him like I never sought him before because I'm like, this is terrifying. I don't know what to do. And I only know that in scripture, Jesus knew what to do. So that drew me closer to the Lord. And it was in that moment that the scripture that Katie had been speaking to me all throughout this process, that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, became true for me. And I understood like that the enemy had power, but he had no authority. And I'm so thankful for the Lord allowing those events to happen, because they were terrifying, but I understood my authority from this experience. And it was cool because I often would like feel shame, and came to the realization like shame is not my inheritance, it's the enemy's, because I'm a Christian, but we can still be Christians and have open doors in our life. And my open doors were trauma. It was things from my lineage, like things from my bloodline. It was unforgiveness. And what had happened to me that caused these open doors weren't necessarily my fault, but I had a responsibility, and my responsibility was how I responded to it. And so the biggest thing for me that was an open door was unforgiveness. And as I walk through inner healing and continue to walk through inner healing, forgiving the people who I never thought I would be able to forgive, the people who have hurt me the most deepest, it's through Christ that I've been able to forgive them. And I'm so thankful for this experience, because now when I need to forgive someone, I'm much quicker to forgive them, because I don't want to allow the enemy to have another open door to my life. What I would say to anyone who feels like my story is identical to what they've walked through, or there's pieces of my story that they can relate to, I would say stay in the Word and draw close to God, because it was within, and community, because I would not say that community healed me, but community walked with me through my healing. And I'm so thankful for that, because it helped me heal. And so my encouragement would be is like, stay close to the Lord, stay in his word, and like make the choice to heal, because healing is not easy. And anyone who tells you that is not being honest, but healing is a weapon. And the enemy doesn't want us to heal because he knows healing is a weapon. And so I choose healing over and over again, even when it's hard, because I know it's a weapon. And one day someone's going to come alongside me who has a similar story. And I know that when I've asked the questions why, I'm going to get that answer when someone comes along, whether it's depression, whether it's experiencing manifestations and deliverance. I'm going to have the ability to help them like no one else can, because I walk through it and I watch Jesus heal me from it. And not only heal me from it, I'm healing from it, and I'm walking in freedom, which I never thought was possible. When I said in the beginning, if 516 doesn't heal me, nothing else can, that wasn't true, because 516 didn't heal me, but God did, and God can.